welcome to the Author's Corner. My name is Marisa Bluedorn. I am your host, and I'm the editor-in-chief of Own It Magazine and Publishing. And we have another magazine that's called Literacy Awareness. And Own It Magazine publishes so many magazines as well as books. We felt it important for us in the Author's Corner to really talk about the importance of literacy. And so today our focus is again on global, reaching out to the whole world and getting connected in a deeper, more personal way. And so welcome to the Author's Corner. Taking center stage and owning it with me is contributing writer Teresa Palmer. Yay!
Yay. Welcome, everyone.
And we're going to kick it back off to where we were talking about last week. Let me see. We got a shout out. All right, Doris, thank you for chiming in today. We were talking last week in regards to being global, this importance of, becoming global, just and really broadening our horizons. I know that books were written for us to escape from our present. Sometimes they're entertaining, they're educational, building our knowledge, spreading our perspectives on lives. And literacy really takes you to another place sometimes in another time. When a book is well written, it can make you feel like you're submerged into the reality of the text. And so that's why it's so important for us to get back into. I know for me, I love to have a book in my hand. I love reading online and things like that. But in order for you to get up under a tree and really snuggle up with literature, you need to have the book in your hand. I just feel that way. How do you feel about having the physical book in your hand?
I agree with you. I think it's great that we could do things online. I think technology is wonderful, but sometimes I think we have too much technology. And by that, I mean that you no longer have to go to a bookstore and look through the shelves and look at books. I always loved that. And when I was in New Jersey, I had Barnes and Noble, which was huge bookstore near my house. And I would go there every week. And they also had their own cafe. So you could browse through books, bring them in the cafe, have something to eat and drink, or converse with others that were in there. Or they had quiet spots where you could go if you were working on a project and you were also browsing through some of the books. So I always loved that. When I moved to Alabama, they have Books a Million, but I don't really see people in there. It's not really a place, I don't think, to sit and kind of spend time. But I think that's because of the way our world has become anyway, that we feel like if we're walking around a bookstore, we're wasting time, which isn't what it is. I think it's important physically to go to these places. There is a Barnes and Noble that's about 20 minutes from me, which isn't a bad ride. And again, I'm looking to reconnect with that, meeting people in there talking. I don't know if they still do it, but I know sometimes with authors, they would host certain authors and you would come and you would talk about your book. And I was told through a writing community that they don't do that much anymore because people don't really come to these not online, in-person events, unless it's like somebody really well known or something like that. And I think we need to get back to those things because as wonderful as it is online, and books do take you any place you want to go. One of my favorites is All the Light You Cannot See. And it's the story of a blind girl in war-torn France. And it's just a wonderful book. And there's so much history and I'm a French student. I study French. And there was so much I learned from that about the period of time when the Germans invaded France and what it was like. And, it was so vivid seeing it through, and I want to say the eyes, no pun intended, of a blind girl that used her other senses so fully. And it is such a rich book. And I think those are the experiences that we get from books. And yes, I read it online and then I saw the movie on Netflix. So I
Yeah.
did do it online, but I also at one point owned a copy of the book. And once I moved, I had to get rid of a lot of things. And some of the books, I kept a certain amount of books that I really liked. But I used to have an entire library. My whole downstairs of my house was just a whole library. And I had bookshelves that were built in the wall by the fireplace. And it was just really wonderful to have all those books. Of course, when we went to move, it wasn't that wonderful trying to get rid of them. But
Yeah.
I put them out in front of my house, and people would come and take them. And I thought that that was just a wonderful thing too, to have people come and take books, to give your books away if you don't need them anymore or if you're downsizing. So again, I know I got a little off track, I always do, but it's important to have the technology to be online, but it's also important to feel the energy of the book. And I think you could only do that when you hold it in your hands because we are all energy, we are all substance. And that energy does get transferred from person to person, from thing to thing. And I think that when you have that experience of holding a book in your hand, it actually does help transport you more into
Oh,
that book because you're getting the energy of that book.
yes. Even with my textbooks, like in school, and going back, so you said so much that I've experienced myself. Barnes and Noble, Princeton, New Jersey, was my favorite spot because after work I would go there or during lunch. I've written many papers for my master's degree and my bachelor's degree there. And just like you said, there's a community of people, and forget it when I would walk down the aisles to look for, because you're doing research, so you have to find this book. And then I would get to the point where I'm like, I need this book, I need that book, I need it all. Can I just take the books and put them to my head and get all of that information right away? But I love being in the store, even in the library. When you finally take yourself and go to the library and begin to sit there, I just love that experience. And just I always bought my books. So even though I had the option to have many books online, I still bought my books, and they're not cheap. When you're in school, they're not cheap books. Some books are $300. They're not cheap books. And so I still, even if I got a used copy of the book, I would get that used copy, and you can write. I always take notes. You talk about energy transfer. I take notes, especially if it's something that I really, really want to learn and begin to add into my life as a practice. I want to highlight it. I want to write my notes on it. What revelation did I get when I'm reading this particular text? Do I want to come back to this at a later point? To review it. So yeah, having the print copy is something that we really, really need to talk about it, because when we're dealing with technology, I think that we may have value issues, right? Value issues in regards to how important it is to us, or how do we respect the information that we're reading on. I think that that's where it takes a different approach, in my opinion, because when we watch something online, it's just like, next, but when we have it in our hand, it causes us to step away from the other information. Because a lot of times when we're looking on stuff online, we're getting all these freaking things coming up and popping up, and different things like that. When you take the book and you go aside, and we talk about this all the time, about setting yourself aside so you can be immersed into the present of that moment, and you can really, really get the fullness without it being watered down experience. And I believe that that's critically important. And so that's important. You hit so many things in regards to having to scale back on books. I remember having to do that, and I'm telling you, over the years, and with me in the last 5 or 6 years being in the position that I'm at, I'm buying everybody's books. I got your books. I got both versions of your books. I got your book. I got everybody's book. And when it came to put the books in the barrels to ship them here to the Dominican Republic, I took a lot of books with me. And it wasn't, I got here and said, okay, well, do I need to keep these books? What am I, what books do I need to keep and things like that? And even to the point of getting myself a library here, bookshelves. I'm looking online. What's the best bookshelves that I need that's going to capture? Because when they're visible, they're valuable. When they're tucked away, you don't get to see them. And then it was a reminder to us to say, hey, remember that? Remember that? And I'm like you too. Not only do I like to read the book, I also like to watch movies. I'm a movie fanatic. So if there's a book like Flowers in the Attic, I read that whole book series when I was a young kid. And seeing the movie, then you're saying, well, that wasn't, that wasn't how that went in the book. And this is how it went in the movie. So you get to see the difference of it. And when you read the book, you actually get so much more from it than when you see the movie because they can't put everything in it. But getting back to speaking about and introducing to our audience that you're studying French, we talked about the last show in regards to being global, speaking in the different language, not just eating the food, but getting immersed in understanding the language and getting embedded in the culture, and what did that really mean to be embedded in the culture and to respect and honor the culture by truly understanding it and seeking the true knowledge of it. You talked about it. And now you're saying you shared also too that you're in Toastmasters, which is a French Toastmasters. That's really going above and beyond because we talked about for so many decades, not just a couple of years. We've been talking about being international and global. When the internet first took place back in the 90s, we talked about that. Well, now it's a real reality. And we're faced now as with learning the language, not just being connected to people in international places and locations, but really having to speak the language. Like me, I better act like I know and learn the Spanish. And so, what does that feel like? Because we talked about last show, we talked about the dynamics of switching your mind while speaking the language to the other language and then back to the English. And for me, even though I'm not speaking fluent language, I'm also losing how to spell English words. I'm over here and I'm struggling. I'm like, well, how do I spell? This is crazy. But I get a glimpse into what that feels like to have to shift from one language to another, and we take that for granted. I know in the US we do. We take it for granted because that's not a top priority for the majority to be put in a position where you must learn another language fluently. So talk about your experience with that.
It's an amazing thing because I've been studying French on and off, and not that consistently, for about 7 years. And when I started, it all started about 7 years ago when I was going to Roland Garros for the French Open. And it was a significant birthday. It was a milestone. I was celebrating it at Roland Garros. Well, I thought learning a language would be easy because I had studied some French, not French, Spanish before. I took Latin in school, and I thought, well, how difficult could it be? Take a
Right.
few private lessons in Manhattan. There was a French Alliance in Manhattan. And I thought, few lessons, I'll get the hang of how to get on and off the train, how to ask for things. Well, little did I know that 7 years later, even though I could navigate my way now through Roland Garros and a little bit more of the local culture, I still have so much to learn because it's so complicated. And part of that, and what I'm doing now, is I'm studying really the phrases, the expressions, the culture of the French to learn to think like that. Because when you look at some of their phrases that they have, even though they don't make sense as an expression, as do a lot of them in English, like a bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. There's similar things in French, but it gives you an understanding of why do the people think like that? What has gone on or has occurred that, like, one I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was a battle in a war, in a French war, that nobody really could remember what went on. So they made an expression about it. And right now I don't remember the expression because I'm still studying it. But the expression talks about kind of being oblivious. And they use that to when you're with somebody and say that you don't really it's not really important to you what's going on with that particular topic or something that's going to be done, and you use this phrase. And
Right.
what it means is that it's not really significant. Let's move forward with something else.
Right.
And it's this phrase that they say, and it comes from wartime, but learning that has given me a whole different appreciation for how the French think. French Toastmasters is challenging because there's textbook French and there's real life French. And you probably see that in the Dominican Republic, where there's slang, there's expressions that people use in every day, just like in English. We use them and we don't even think about it. And it's just such an enriching experience because even though it's difficult, and even though you may not think that you're doing that well, you still are gaining that headway into the language. And for me, I find if I don't think about it, I have to get out of my head because
Yes.
if I think about it, I can't speak. It's difficult because I'm trying to go from English to French. But if I immerse myself in that conversation, what the person's saying at the moment, what's happening, I could come up with an answer. I may not be totally correct with the grammar, my sentence structure, but the word gets across, the meaning gets across. And I think that's really what being in a French Toastmasters has taught me is I'm not going to be perfect, but I'm at the point now where I could give a 5 to 7 minute speech in the French language and it's understood by people because I'm able to get the emotions, the energy out from it, and the message rather than stringing words together. And the
Right.
first speech I gave, oh my goodness, I strung everything together. I used Google Translate. And believe me, I sounded like a robot because people in the audience just looked at me like, what the heck is she saying?
Right.
Because it didn't have me in it. And I
Right.
think that's another thing with the language. And Toastmasters were taught that in order to be a good speaker, you have to be passionate. You have to come out. It's not just putting words together. And it's the same thing in a language that you're studying. It has to be you. And it may not be totally correct, but when you're coming across as you, that's what people value.
Yes.
That's what they value. They don't value the fact that, oh, okay, I'm in Spain, I'm trying to speak Spanish. Yes, I think that that's important to recognize that culture, to honor that you're in another culture, another language, and do your best to honor that. But I think what the people really appreciate the most is when you put yourself into it and when you really are you. And I did that last year, almost 2 years ago now, a year and a half in the DR, because emotions was part French, the resort, and part Spanish. Well,
Yep.
I tried my best with French, and there was a lot of laughter because my French was not up to par
Right.
to their French. And I remember going one night and trying to reserve a table at another restaurant. And I did it in French, and the girl behind the desk just kind of looked at me. Well, she went and got the manager, and the manager was able to figure out what I was saying.
Right.
And it was so cool because she said I was speaking too slow for her, and she
Wow.
didn't grasp a lot of the words that I was saying, and she wanted to honor me
Right.
speaking French, so she didn't want to say something that may seem to me like she wasn't listening to what I was saying. And that's why she got the manager, so that the manager could come and we could really have a good conversation. And I so appreciated that. And we laughed because the manager told me that one of the things I said was not about getting a reservation in a restaurant. It had something to do with a bathroom.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. That's too funny. When you
Yeah. So it just shows you how, the appreciation for the cultures and how we laughed about it and how I was encouraged by them to continue to speak the French and not to worry if I didn't get it right, and it may take a few times. So I think we really need to honor other cultures. The way we do that is going there, trying to converse. And if we really can't, saying to them, this is what I'm trying to say. I'm going
yes.
to have to say it in English because I don't want to give the wrong impression. But again, it's just so important to be you in
Yes.
that language. And when you're speaking to other people in that language, to just honor them, do the best you can, do the best for that language, but also acknowledge if you're in over your head.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? People appreciate the authenticity, right? And then they also,
Right.
when you take the approach to have deeper connection, relativity, and respect for another people and culture, they respect that because in that lies diversity and inclusion. That's the authenticity of diversity and inclusion is, and it broadens us. It's not just about getting to know people, but it broadens our capacity and understanding of, and just like you said, for me too, it's like why. I want to know why because why gives you full comprehension. If you don't know why and you're just doing it, there again it decreases the value, right, and the priority and the commitment, because when you really understand, now you value what you understand, now you value it, now you have respect for it and you have commitment to go even further in, and that's why that's so important. And then you get to see the humanity of it all. You get to see their human, the softness of the people, the genuineness of the people, and a respect for why they do things the way that they do them. Because we want that, right? We want other people to respect our traditions, our values. They don't have to agree, but that to respect it is so important to allow people to be who they are in their own authenticity. I think that that's so important for us as we enter into this global arena that's taking us to a whole other place. We're in a pivotal time of change and transformation um, on a global level without sounding cliche-ish. On a global level, we are really changing things. Things are beginning to happen like our forefathers went through a massive, massive change. And I believe that if we as human beings learn to embrace and respect one another, this could be a beautiful transformation and a transformation that will bring us to even a deeper level of unity across the board as humans. And so this has been really, really good. I love this topic because, like I said, knowledge, knowledge is power. but knowledge applied is powerful. When we apply what we've learned, when we apply, learning from different people and different perspectives, it gives us a different way of looking at things that we may not have ever thought of. If I didn't come here, I would never be cooking cornbread from scratch. Cook cornbread. You know how we go get Jiffy cornbread? No, they don't have Jiffy here, and I love the
Uh,
cornbread. And so I had to actually learn how to make cornbread from scratch. So that I can have something here in this country that I really, really love. And they don't eat cornbread. They have cornmeal here. But when I made cornbread and started giving it out, because I love people, right? And I love cooking and I love sharing. And I started sharing it. And they were like, Marisa, this is rich. I said, yeah, because I don't know what you guys call pastries, but they ain't pastries because they're not sweet. Like, it's very rare that you find the sweet, sweet, sweet pastries here like we have in the US. And so they were like, Marisa, this is very rich. But just imagine all of the things and the foods and the different mindsets that we would never experience if we don't talk to people who are not exactly like us. People who are different from us can open us up to see things in a broader perspective, and
Definitely.
to be introduced to something that we could really, really enjoy, that if we're narrow-minded, we'll never have that experience. I love oxtails. I love curry chicken. I love sushi, cooked, raw. I love it all. I love Thai food. I love Ethiopian food. I like peanut butter with my chicken. If you cook it right, it tastes nice. So who would have ever thought of these different things that you would actually eat and experience? I love pineapples on my pizza. So I do love that Hawaiian pizza. I love that. I believe that when you bite into the pineapple and you taste the cheese and it's hot and it's gooey, it's just something refreshing as well as fulfilling at the same time. If you're narrow minded, you don't get to experience those things. And so, Teresa, I'm going to let you close us out. I said what I had to say. This global thing is a beautiful thing, and I love it.
yeah. Yeah. I remember when, oh, a long time ago, went to Disney World in Florida. And one of the most popular attractions at that time was It's a Small World. And that was back in a time when there were no computers. And that transported you into so many cultures and just so rich and such an experience that I remember waiting in line over an hour just to get in there.
Wow.
And, now we have that same experience globally because it is a small world. And
Yes,
you
it
said about, people different than you. I think that that also extends to people that speak the same language but are different with different opinions, different perspectives. I think that in order for the world to come together, we need to even come together within ourselves of letting people express who they are, of letting people be individuals. You don't have to agree with everything anybody says, and you may not understand things. Just
yeah,
like culturally, you may not understand what somebody's saying, but you give them the opportunity to say it. So I think we have to extend that to not only to different languages,
but
but
yes.
even with each country in the world within our own languages, to work with the people in our languages, to not have those, what do you call them, boundaries or barriers between people. And then we extend that out in the world. And I think the world's a beautiful place.
Yes.
And I think that being global is so important. I think our literacy helps us with that because reading a book does transport you. The internet transports you, but I think the most important thing is that we all realize that, yes, we're only different on the outside, not on the inside. We're all made the same way with the same substances and energy. So I think we need to capitalize on that, to be good to each other, to treat each other with respect, and to broaden our horizons, not only to what we know, but to the whole world. So that's what I'm leaving people with, that message.
And that's beautiful. Thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
audience. We thank you for listening in and chiming in. And as always, we pray our words inspired you. Take care. Have a
Thank
blessed
you.
rest of the week. We are